You know, folks, I came here one time, came on here and I talked about transformations. I talked about the inanimate transformations and stuff like that. I talked about lustful melt and all that. And these are pretty much things you can find at TVTropes, because they got a whole listing of them, believe me. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized there was so much more to talk about. But I never had a chance to. And then recently, last night I should say, I was looking up, just out of curiosity's sake, I looked up invisibility on TVTropes. And I looked up and I clicked on the Western animation category. And it told me about the show, and one of the, well, it didn't tell me about, but it showed me one of the Western animated shows that involved invisibility was W.I.T.C.H. W.I.T.C.H. Basically is, short for something. Can't think of it right now. That was my dog. Anyway, she's got a flea. I gotta give her a bath today. But anyway, long story short, I didn't realize about this. I mean, I knew about W.I.T.C.H. I knew it was on Disney for a while. It was on Toon Disney for a while. In fact, it was one of the last original, or at least one of the original licensed shows by Toon Disney, or to be shown on Toon Disney, and be part of their JetX hour. So I do remember that. But what surprised me was when I looked up anything else, any other TV trope that might be involved with this show, and especially the character that was pointed to with the invisibility, something else stuck out to me. It talked about this character having an elemental change. Now, I didn't have really any idea exactly what that meant or what was going on. I thought perhaps this character may have become brainwashed and became a bad guy or a bad girl. And then I found out something. I found out that in the finale of the Witch show, that this girl, along with the main leader character and the other characters, did what was known as an elemental shapeshift or transformation into pure elementals that they basically had the power of. And the more I thought about it, and I even watched a little bit of how this happened, I thought to myself, that'd be an interesting thing to talk about, because not many people talk about the elemental shape-shifting / transformations that occur sometimes in all of media, depending if it's live action, anime, Western animation in this case, comic books, video games, you name it. Sometimes these elemental changes happen because they're all part of a story arc. Now, I don't know much about W.I.T.C.H. Didn't really watch it that much. Of course, I was also working, so didn't really care. But obviously, in its 2 seasons, it gained a big enough fan following that you have Wikipedia sites based on it, and I think you even have fans wanting to see it come back, because there was a 3rd season planned. However, when one talks about elemental changes and elemental transformations or shape-shifting, in all of media, especially like, let's say, animation, anime, and perhaps even comic books and live action, it's pretty interesting, to say the least. It's a really interesting trope to be used, because sometimes, depending on the situation, that the elemental transformation for a character, if it's the main character, sub-main character, whatever, sometimes it's just temporary. Just temporary, it's just for that episode, and then that's it. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it's called upon to go for a couple of episodes because it's all part of one story arc. Who knows? Sometimes it happens halfway through a movie and that person gains those abilities for a while, for the rest of that movie, if not maybe into the sequel. And sometimes it's the same with comic books. Sometimes a character will gain a power like that, go through an elemental transformation or elemental shapeshift, and they'll keep that ability for maybe that issue only, or maybe for a couple of issues, because of the fact that it's it's part of the story arc. Now, for anybody that might be new, you're probably wondering, what does he mean by elemental transformations and shapeshifting? Well, basically elemental transformation and shapeshifting, when it's used in any form of media, mostly, like I said, anime, Western animation, comic books, and sometimes movies, basically involves a character gaining the power of an element that we pretty much use almost in everyday life. In the case of Witch, you had the characters gain the element powers, or have control over the elemental powers of lightning, light, if you will, water, earth, air, fire. And sometimes it's just an elemental transformation. Sometimes can mean that they just have that power in them, that all they have to do is just call upon something and that's it. But in some cases, like with the Witch finale a couple years ago, apparently, I think it was a couple years ago, not really, but about a decade ago or so, I should say. If not, I think about 7 years ago, maybe? 7 years ago? Can't really remember. Because I know Toon Disney was still on about the time when I moved out here, so. But yeah, basically, in the finale, as a last resort, the main characters, the witch characters, the guardians as they were called, to defeat the villain, the main villain, they had to basically as a last resort, they had to call upon the full range of their powers and go full elemental. In other words, you had the leader who had control over light and lightning and all that and energy become pure energy. I mean, basically your whole body just became energy. You had one girl who had control over water, over the element of water. Her body just became pure water. It was just pure water right there. Another girl you had had the element of air, become nothing but air. One girl with the element of earth became basically became almost like a tree-like creature. She had roots, her feet were turned into roots, her hair became huge and long. And another one had the element of fire. And sometimes that's what the elemental shapeshifting comes into place when it comes to elemental transformations. Or kind of is in that same category, because with an elemental transformation, you're not just, transformed and now you have this power inside of you to control the element that you have. But sometimes it also means you can temporarily transform a part of yourself to, kind of increase your power. And sometimes you can do a full-on elemental transformation that becomes a full-on elemental shapeshift. In other words, you become that element. And sometimes, like I said, it all depends on, what medium calls for it, in what, like show or comic or movie. Depending if it is Western animation, live action, or a live action or animated movie. Whether it is a Western animated series, or an anime series, maybe even movie, or even a multi-issue comic book arc. Once it calls upon that, it calls upon it for a reason. And sometimes, the franchise or the character that gets involved in it, it's like a main character. Like let's say, and I know it never happened in Rescue Rangers, but let's say Gadget had a story arc where she gained the power of Earth, or gained the power of water, like this one character did in Witch, and that she can control all the watery substance around her, but the only way she could ever fully defeat something with no other choice is to become a full water being, basically transform her body or shapeshift her body into a watery being. And that's all cool and everything, and that's only going to be for that one episode. You know, and it's just basically about the element is what it is. It's all about the element. And sometimes it's just for that one episode or that one story arc, and then all of a sudden the character's back to normal. But sometimes there's always that risk that kind of gets you really invested if you watch a show, or you read a comic, or you watch the movie, or or you watch, like I say, you watch the movie, you read the comic, or you watch the Western animated show, or the live action show, or you watch the anime show, whatever. There's always that catch that makes you invested. Basically with Witch, the finale, basically, towards the finale, and I guess this was indicated in the second season somewhere, that if the girls ever did call upon the full powers of the elements and become those elements, that there was, not only would it be a huge risk, but in turn they would lose their humanity, the personalities, and even the memories. They even had a scene towards the end when the friends are trying to get them back. The friends and some of the friends and family members are trying to get them back to the humanity, back to the human form. That you have one of the witch girls asking, "What's humanity?" basically indicating they were slowly starting to lose themselves. So thankfully, the main character, who's called Willow or Will, in the series, she's able to show that not only does she have the power, not only was she worthy of having that power of energy and lightning, but she also showed she was worthy as a leader because she was able to have them follow her back to the humanity. So, yeah, there are things like that. And in stories, either it's comic books, like I say, anime or Western animated or live action movies, or anime and Western animated, if not live action shows, they will throw things like that in there just to get you invested, because you'll never know if that character is going to restore to normal. Sometimes they even do that in the middle of an arc that involves a character or characters going through an elemental change, or have gone into the elemental shapeshift of being that pure element that they had the power over, and that it takes until almost the end of the arc to get them back to normal. And it's weird. Now I'll give you an example. My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, has a comic book by IDW. I think the second story arc they did was called Nightmare Rarity. And even though you may not look at it in this category, darkness and night is like an element, is an element itself. Night and darkness is an element. So basically, Rarity got possessed by the same things that have possessed Luna, and it took to the end of the story arc to get her back to normal. And again, I know you might think, well, what does that have to do with what you're saying? Basically, because night and darkness is an element. That's my point. Again, it all depends on, what the show, with the medium, whether it's an anime or Western animated show, or a live action show, or a comic book, or magna, or even a Western animated or anime or live action movie. Sometimes it'll call upon it, and either it's just like towards the end, where it's going to be, like in the case of Witch, a last minute resort, or it's just going to be something that you have to continuously watch or read to find out if the character or characters get restored to normal because of that elemental transformation and shapeshifting. And it's things like this. It's this elemental transformation and shapeshifting that makes these kind of tropes, either the TV tropes or movie tropes, really interesting and really intriguing. Makes you want to watch or read, because of these kind of things that happen. You know, it makes you really want to watch and read. It's really a unique perspective in the end. But overall, that's my take on the whole TV trope known as elemental transformation / elemental shapeshifting when it comes to any kind of medium it's involved in. So let me know what you guys think, though. Do you think I've missed anything? Let me know what you think down below. Comment if you like, and I'll talk to y'all later.